clean on updates on all current and future interfaces. This is the passive interface default. Default cost calculations. This is the auto cost reference bandwidth. Oops, I'm not in Rotor OSPF 1 anymore. This rotor array cost on VLANs 10 and 20 is nonsense because rotor array has no VLANs. Now, rotor array, we're doing authentication differently. It says enable MD5 authentication for all interfaces in area 11. Do not do it interface by interface. So this is under your rotor OSPF 1, so you're in config rotor mode. You do area 11 authentication message digest. So here's the area turn on authentication for every interface. We've got the auto cost reference bandwidth. We have a single network statement that will advertise all networks. Redistribute static subnets to redistribute that static route. What's am I supposed to do? On F01, configure the key. OSPF. Message digest key 1, 5 Cisco. I don't have any neighbors. There we go. So at that point, once I enabled the key on the interface, now, again, remember, on the previous router, I told you that there were two things to do to enable authentication. Number one, you had to set the key, and number two, you had to enable authentication. Setting the key always must be done on the interface. You have no choice. You have to set the key interface by interface. Enabling authentication can be done in one of two places. It can be done on the interface, which is what we did on router B. We did the IP OSPF authentication message digest. It can also be done under the router OSPF for the entire area. So it can be done either in interface configuration mode or in router configuration mode. On the packet tracer, I asked you to do it in interface configuration mode on one router, in router configuration mode on the second router. I probably will ask you to do the same thing on the SBA. And this one we wanted to fast Ethernet 0/0, oops, 0/0, UIP OSPF authentication null. I don't know why it won't do command completion there. Turn off authentication. So I think that's all of the requirements for router A. Well, we didn't do the passive interfaces, no passive interfaces because we've done that before. The default cost calculation, this is the auto cost reference bandwidth command. 4C is nonsense, cross it out. Enable MD5 authentication for all interfaces in area 11 is under router OSPF. Area 11 authentication message digest. On F0/1, configure the key is IP OSPF message digest key 1 MD5 Cisco. On F00, suppress authentication is IP OSPF authentication null. And propagate the static route is redistribute static subnets. And remember the subnets option. Well, default information originate does not redistribute a static route, it only redistributes a default route. So it has to be specifically a fuzzy route. Router C is pretty trivial.
Did 214.
Thank you. Base at 0/0 will be IP address 16.11.5.1. Shut. The default route, route 0.0.0.0.0.0.0, which is a quad route via 213.11.3.1. And this may or may not have connectivity depending how many mistakes I've made. Oh my God. Well, there's two problems. There, I'm absolutely shocked. Number one, that I didn't make any mistakes, but number two, that there is a problem with Packet Tracer and multi-area OSPF. I've often found that static route doesn't get redistributed past the area border router. So essentially, I think at the bottom here, I'm shocked, my keyword. Because at the, oh, I know what it was. Once I did the summarization, so connectivity, when you're testing connectivity, and this is up at the top, in the lab from the pseudo PC that I haven't bothered configuring, but you should in the lab be able to ping 199.9.9.9. With Packet Tracer, I found that it would work initially, and then over time, the area border router in the middle would stop redistributing the static route. And it wasn't anything that I did with the configuration. I didn't take anything out. It originally worked. I went away and had supper, came back, it didn't work. My dog had not been typing Cisco commands. He was banging at the table, so it is a Packet Tracer bug. So essentially, we've got router B is the border router going up to your switch, actually. Going on to remote. And then down here you've got router A, down here you have router C, down here you have your pseudo. Now, if you looked at the lab specifications, you won't have 4 routers in the SBA. Router C and the pseudo PC are just your PC. You should have connectivity from the pseudo to the area border router. You should have connectivity from the area border router to, and this is in the lab and with Packet Tracer. So with Packet Tracer, you should have connectivity from pseudo to that area border router. You should have connectivity from the area border router up to remote. with Packet Tracer, I have often found that because of a Packet Tracer bug, the connectivity breaks here. So you may not be able to go from the sudo PC all the way up to remote. That does not mean that your configuration is wrong. It's probably the Packet Tracer bug. Okay, you know, there's only one thing that doesn't work in Packet Tracer with this topology. That's it. And all I can do is sort of say, here's the caveat. This is where Packet Tracer will break, but this is the testing that you should still be able to do. Okay, so you should be able to ping from here to here. You should be able to ping from there to there. Do I think that you'll be able to ping all the way through? Probably not. Yes.
Because RC is simulating our PC,
Yep.
but RC is actually a router, we have to configure an additional interface on the other side for sudo to ping, right?
So we configured F0/0, which would be the real IP address on your PC.
Yeah.
We configured the default route, which is just assigning a gateway on your PC. Sorry, this was F0/1. We did configure F0/0, which in the lab would be the IP address of the sudo.
Okay. Oh, okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, that makes sense.
It's like, this is what I can do in the lab, and this is what I can do in Packet Tracer, and how can I make this a comprehensive practice exercise that doesn't break Packet Tracer, that emulates as much as I can of what we can do physically. You know, partly this is a simulator, it does have bugs, and partly, yes, we're doing some quite sophisticated stuff with the simulation. We've exceeded the bounds of some simulators.
So then really there really is no need for us to actually have a simulated pseudo PC device on Packet Tracer, right? Because it's just the other interface that acts as,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, yes.
I know we haven't gotten to the IPv6 stuff, but is there an issue with like sudo and like forwarding stuff in IPv6? Because I've never actually successfully gotten sudo to communicate in IPv6.
Okay, so give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Because we will look at the IPv6 and sudo. The only other thing that I wanted to talk about was the summarization with OSPF, and then we'll look at EIGRP for IPv6. You will get OSPF for either IPv4 or IPv6, EIGRP for either IPv4 or IPv6, but it won't be all four, right? You won't have to do you'll do one routing protocol for IPv4, a different routing protocol for IPv6. So whatever, you know, I toss a coin, whatever you get for IPv4, you'll get the other protocol for IPv6. They tend to be quite similar, so but the only other thing that I wanted to talk about was the summarization just before we leave IPv4. So, road array here has all these loopbacks that we want to summarize.
I don't think she's going to do the entire. Okay. She's going to
Find road array, I have to find out what their IP addresses are. So 194.11, 161 will be our interesting. So, 128. 128. Can't do this in my head.
It's 101.
No 64s, a 32, no 16, 0001. Okay. So 128 plus a 32 plus a 1. That would be 161. 128, 0, 0, 1, 0. 128, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1. So this is my interesting octet in binary. Choose, look for the maximum number of identical bits. So this is all 1, it's a network bit. This is all 0s, it's a network bit. This is all 1s, it's a network bit. This is all 0s, it's a network bit. This is all 0s, it's a network bit. This is all 0s, it's a network bit. This alternates, it's a host bit in the supernet. So we're going to take 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, right? The host bits become zeros. This is my supernet address. This would be 128 plus 32 would be 160. My mask is 8 plus 8 is 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So it's going to be 194.11.160.0/22 is the supernet. Where do you advertise the supernet? On the area border router with OSPF. With EIGRP, you advertise it on the router with the loopbacks, with the interfaces. So with OSPF, it must be on the area border router. With EIGRP, it's on the actual router that's connected to the networks you're summarizing. With OSPF, you advertise the supernet under the router configuration. With EIGRP, you advertise the supernet on the interface. So, if we were doing EIGRP, gotta look at the diagram for a second. Here's router A. Do something for me. So, with EIGRP, you would advertise the supernet on router A because it's router A that's connected to all of those networks. And you would advertise it on F0/1 going up to router B. So if this was, we don't have configure T interface F0/1 IP summary address. EIGRP, what are we using? I have no idea what autonomous system number we're supposed to use. EIGRP1. 194.11.160.0. .255.255/22.252. Okay. So this is the command you would use in EIGRP. In EIGRP, you do it in interface configuration mode. And it's the interface that connects to the upstream router. If you have 2 upstream routers, then it would be on 2 interfaces. You would have to do it once per interface that connects to an upstream router. And it's the IP summary address. And again, you can see from the number of times I did the question mark, it's like, okay, I know it's IP summary address, but once I do that, what's the format of this command? You're sitting there on a router, use the question mark. How do you do the same thing in OSPF? In OSPF, you guys are correct. It must be on the area border router. So in OSPF, it's going to be on router B. Router OSPF1, and this is area 11. place I know where OSPF and the IGRP use real masks instead of wildcard masks. This is just so that Cisco could put questions on their tests. Say, which is the correct area range command? And here's one with a wildcard mask, and here's one with a real mask. That's it. Whether this will work or not, who knows? This is packet tracer. And we know whether it works or not. We can look at the switch to see if we see it. I see no one on your networks. Something else that's working in packet tracer. I hate packet.
Yep.
So. Yeah. Everybody should be able to check out 2 routers and a
Yeah.
layer 3 switch.
Here's $6,000 worth of equipment. Have fun.
Okay, so that's IPv4. Do we want to do IPv6 or have a 10-minute break?
10-minute break.
Okay, let's do a 10-minute break. IPv6 is